Hello there, Ray here, and in today's video, I will be showing you all 18 new farms for 1.17, which is the Caves and Cliffs update part 1. There's over 130 new items, blocks, and mobs for 1.17, and all the new items can actually be automatically farmed up. Because the Caves and Cliffs update was split into two parts, a lot of these new items and blocks you cannot naturally find in your world in large amounts. Because of this, automatic farms are very useful in getting all the items in abundance. And I would appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future farms, such as when I design a warden farm. And I have the goal of farming up every item in the game of Minecraft. And so far I have designed farms for over 1,000 different items. You can check out each of the farms and the progress with this document linked down below. Despite the Caves and Cliffs update being broken into two different versions, 1.17 and 1.18, there is actually so much just in the 1.17 update to do with automatic farms that I will be showing this in two different videos. This first video will cover how to farm up just the new items for 1.17. The second video will cover new ways to farm up old items, such as the shulker shell farms. Now, all these farms weren't just designed overnight. I spent the last 8 months streaming for hundreds of hours of testing the new snapshots, designing automatic farms, and improving and compacting them for survival. So if you enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like as well as tell other Minecrafters about RaysWorks and all the automatic farms he has for both the 1.17 items and all the past ones. That is by far the best way to support this channel. And I stream every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday around 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And all my streams are archived if you want to check them out to see how exactly I designed all these. In this video, we will be quickly going through all the different farms. So if you want to learn how exactly they work in more detail, make sure to check out the description as I have done an individual video on each of these farms as I've designed them over the last 8 months. And if you want to build up any of them, I have provided this world download which includes them all, so you can see exactly how to build them up block for block. And if I do any block by block tutorials, I'll also have those linked below. Keep in mind that all these farms were designed for the Java Edition and for vanilla survival. If you ever need any help with the farms, you can always ask in my Discord. There is a lot of farms to go over, so let's get started. The first one we're going to take a look at is the simple AFK Hanging Root farm. Hanging Root is a new item for 1.17, and you do need a tool to farm it, which is a shears. So this machine is quite simple. There's an on-off switch right there, and then you just hop into here, move yourself in a little bit, then hold down the left button. The farm does need the player to AFK within it while holding down a button. And any farm that needs mouse buttons held down can be automatically done by first holding down the mouse button, then holding down F3, then tapping T, and then releasing all 3 buttons. Now you can run the farm without you having to hold down buttons, and you can tap Alt-Tab to switch to a different window to work on your computer to do other things. The Hanging Root item is currently used for aesthetics, and the farm itself is pretty simple to set up and build yourself. If you're wondering how to get any of these new items in survival for the first time, check out this video. Using this farm for 1 hour will produce 66,000 Hanging Root, which is equivalent to all these shulker boxes filled just in 1 hour. This farm takes 1 bone meal for each Hanging Root, so build this near one of these bone meal farms or attach it directly to it. You can find the bone meal farms linked below. Next, we're going to take a look at an infinitely automatic AFK Hanging Root farm. The main difference with this one is that we have an automatic way for the player to repair their shears. This is done by having mending as well as unbreaking on it. So this farm is very similar. You turn it on. You also need some snowballs to aggro the pigmen for the first time. So just throw one at one of these guys, and they will start dying and producing the XPs which you need. And then you go into farm and AFK just like the other one. Notice that the durability on my shears goes down, but then it's going to repair itself when a pigman dies. This is what makes it infinitely automatic, as the player doesn't have to do anything in order to have this farm continue to work, but you would need to attach this directly to a bone meal farm. Now we're going to take a look at a Dripleaf farm. Dripleafs are not only cool looking, they also have this mechanic of dropping things that are on top of them. So I designed 2 farms that let you get tons of these. First one is simpler and smaller. You can turn it on right there and hop in here. And with this one, all you do is aim directly in front of you and hold down the right click button, and all the drip leaves are being sent down into this chest here. And the entire build is quite simple. And just under this one is the faster version. And to run this one, on-off switch is there. Hop into here, you line yourself with this wall, and then you have to aim against the side of this glass block. Using the new spyglass is very handy in these situations. So you can aim right about here. I can switch to my Dripleaf and just hold down right click and And for this one, it's best to use extremely fast clicking, which you can do in survival by changing your right click button to a button on your keyboard, and then just hold down that button will let you spam click. Cool trick that I discovered back in 1.13. All the items are ending up down in these hoppers, and then they all end up in the chest down below here. This farm produces over 47,000 dripleaf per hour. That is equivalent to this many shulker boxes full of dripleaf. Once again, this farm also takes 1 bone meal for each dripleaf. Now we're going to take a look at another new item. This is a glow lichen. This will be an easy AFK glow lichen farm. This thing is extremely small. You can see the entire thing just from here. Glow lichen is a new block that puts off low levels of light. And despite it looking like vines, you can't climb it and it doesn't naturally grow. This stuff is great for putting texture over top of blocks for an entirely new look. So getting this stuff in large amounts is a must. Run this farm, here is the on switch, and then you need to have some shears, and then you just aim at this one and hold down left click. All the items are then collected in the hopper and put into this barrel. This little device produces over 8,000 glow lichen per hour. It takes 1 bone meal per lichen. There's also an infinitely automatic version of the glow lichen farm, which is the same farm, but I put in some pigment portal farms to give you XPs to repair your shears. So you AFK right here and you get some shears and snowballs, and then you just hit one of these pigmen, make them mad, and then you can AFK this after you turn on the farm by clicking this on switch right here. Then you can hold down your left mouse. With these pigment portal farms, it also produces byproducts of the pigmen. I also designed a super fast glow lichen farm. This one's a little bit bigger than the other one, but it produces a lot more. To run this one, you turn it on here, you hop into here, you close this trap door, then you just aim in the corner here and hold down left click. And then when you finish, you remove the lichen from the trap door and right click it to open back up again. This farm is insanely fast, producing as high as 108,000 glow lichen per hour. That's equivalent to all of this double chest full of glow lichen in shulker boxes, and this one. That also means you need that much bone meal going into it. Next is one of my favorite farms for 1.17. This is a moss block farm that also can produce bone meal and fuel, which is infinitely automatic and playerless. So there's 2 versions of this farm. This first one was for the early snapshots, where Azalea couldn't be broken by water, and moss growth was very limited. The second version is for later versions, but both work in 1.17. These farms are amazing because not only do they provide a wide range of different new blocks, including the moss block, which is like a grass block but always green and on all sides, moss carpet, which is like normal carpet but camouflages well with grass. And it produces the 2 new types of azalea bushes, which look amazing inside of flower pots. It also has a byproduct of producing wheat seeds. On top of that, this farm can run 24/7 in spawn chunks without a player. And in single player, this will run as long as you're online and the overworld is loaded. And you can choose what type of things you want to get out of this farm. You can either have it directly put all the extra vegetation into a composter, therefore you get bone meal out of it, or you can have this hopper point into a chest directly where you can get all of the items. And what's even cooler yet is that you can filter out the azaleas and you can directly put them into your furnace. And that's what I set up here is 2 filters that pull out the azaleas, then they will automatically put them in here, and they're actually used as a fuel source. And therefore they can be used for a 24/7 XP source, as any items that get smelted down when you pull them out is going to give the player some XPs. So you get all these lovely vegetation, you can also choose to get bone meal, you also get infinite amounts of fuel and infinite amounts of XPs, all while never having to have a player load this, making this farm truly a must-have for anyone who has a base. The farm itself is also quite simple. You can see there's not a lot of redstone to this entire thing, and it's infinitely automatic, meaning that once you start it up, it could run forever. The only thing to keep in mind when building this is that this chest here needs to give priority to this hopper first and then this hopper. You can check this just by putting a single item in here and seeing which hopper it goes into first. That way the machine always fills up this composter with items for bone meal before it then gives all the extra to the player to use for whatever he needs. You can also choose to run this farm in slow mode or fast mode. Currently slow mode. If you want to go fast mode, just remove this piston and observer and hook redstone between this copper block and this piston. Running this farm for 1 hour will produce this much vegetation, or if you decided to get that into bone meal, it would produce this much bone meal. Next, we're going to take a look at Azalea Sapling Auto Farm. This farm is very similar to the Moss Block farm, except it's specifically designed just to get the azalea bushes, but it also produces moss carpets and wheat seeds. The main difference from that farm is that it's extremely fast and don't produce the moss blocks. Here's the on and off switch right here, and then these are the on switches for each of the hopper minecarts which pick up the items. Needs a total of 4 of them just because this farm is so crazy fast. And you can see it working, bone milling the moss blocks, producing these new items, and then pistons are coming in and breaking them off so that the hopper minecarts can pick them up. And it produces a lot very quickly. The farm itself is relatively simple, and all the extra byproducts that you get off of it, you can go ahead and put them right into a composter to get some extra bone meal. This farm does take bone meal, which you have to supply into this chest. It is not self-sustained, meaning that it will use more bone meal than it will produce. And this farm will produce up to 104,000 items per hour. Now we will be looking at another new item, which is glowberries. Glowberries is a food as well as can also be planted as a vine. It acts very similar to other vines in the game. But the vines have a chance of growing and producing fruit on them, which put off light. So first we're going to look at 2 simple farms. We got one that is automatic with bone meal using the same trick as my sweetberry farm. The fox will attempt to take the berries off of the vine, but they end up getting picked up by the hopper. There he goes, and you can see the machine automatically rebone mills it, and the berries are put into this barrel here. This next one is done with a player. You would go inside the farm like so, close the trap door, and then all you do is just right click on the vine. And you'll harvest it, and the berries get picked up, and the machine will automatically rebone mill it. Now to get out of the farm, you do have to remove the vine, then replace it. Both these farms are quite simple, and you can see everything just from here. This farm here will produce over 4,300 glowberries per hour, and takes 1 bone meal per each of them. Now I also designed a big version of the glowberry farm. This farm uses the same setup as my twisting vine farm, where it lets the vines automatically grow, and then a fly machine comes in and breaks them off. The only difference with glowberries is only the ones with berries on them are actually going to drop the glowberry item, which is used to produce the food as well as the vine. So all the rest of these aren't going to drop anything. The machine is ran on the day cycles, so when it changes to a new day, the machine automatically flies. It does produce a lot of particles, so if you look at it, it's going to drop your frames. Looking away will help. Then the machine will reach the end and just get bumped back to this side again, where it'll sit here for the next day. All the items will then fall, and they will be collected by the water streams and put into the chest down below. You can also take these glowberries and put them into compost to get a bone meal farm. Nice thing about this farm is you can make it as long as you want, and you can also make several of these modules beside each other to get as many berries as you need. For this farm to work, it does rely on random ticks. It has to be within 8 chunk radius around the player. So build it somewhere where it's being loaded by players. Next, we're going to look at another new item. This is Dripstone. I made a big auto farm using this. Dripstones are a very unique block that could be either stalactites or stalagmites and have a variety of features, including if stuff falls on it, it'll take 4 times as much damage, and if it's broken off and it falls onto something, it will damage them. In this farm, we actually automatically farm them up the same way as the glowberries, except these things grow much slower. But once again, we have a block here, which just goes off once per day, and it will sweep by breaking these off, which will drop them as an item. It's very fun to watch this farm work, and when it reaches back to its docking bay, any items on top of the honey will be pushed off and all collected by the water, and then everything goes into a chest like the other one. The farm itself can be expanded to get the rates that you need. Besides the new Azalea, there's also a big tree that can grow out of these, so I made a Azalea AFK tree farm. So in this farm, you just plant in a Azalea sapling here. The farm will automatically grow it up, and then it will blow the tree up with 2 TNTs that are precisely placed, which will then have all the items drop and get collected by this hopper here. And the tree itself doesn't produce a new log type, but instead produces an oak log. And the leaves being blown up will produce both types of azalea, including the flowering azalea, and it will also have a chance of producing sticks. The way you run the farm is you stand down here and you have to aim at a precise location on this trapdoor. That is right between these 2 pixels. So you flick this and then you aim in that location. And once you aim precisely, you just hold down right click, and as soon as it needs another tree, it will open up the trapdoor, which will let you place in a new sapling. So it works good for a wood farm and also a fuel farm. I did try to design the entire farm to be very simple. Just a big collection of water up here, and then there's just 2 dispensers with TNT, with very minimal redstone across the entire thing. And the farm produces 450 azalea trees per hour. Another new item for 1.17 is the rooted dirt, and I made a AFK rooted dirt farm. This thing is exactly like the Azalea tree farm, except we swap out the block that the tree grows on with a new block, and then when the tree grows on that new block, it's going to convert it over into a rooted dirt block. And then we have that block piped over here and blown up with the tree. So if we take a look at the output of this farm, you can see besides getting the other loot, we also get rooted dirt, which has a nice texture and look to it and is used to grow the hanging roots. The farm itself has slightly more redstone because it has a cobbled gen in here. And just like the previous farm, it does need to have bone meal, which you can input into this chest right here. It also takes TNT for the TNT to blow the tree up, but you can swap that out with TNT dupers, which still work in 1.17. The rooted dirt farm produces around 402 rooted dirt per hour. You can also right-click the rooted dirt with a hoe to produce hanging root item and converts it into a dirt. And I designed this farm here, which does this all automatically, and is also infinitely automatic, having XP source, an infinite source of TNT, and an infinite source of bone meal. And this farm produces around 402 hanging roots and the same amount of dirt blocks, as well as 2,700 logs, 700 sticks, and 1,200 azalea per hour. Now the azalea trees also provide azalea leaves, and I made an AFK farm for that. This farm works similar to the azalea tree farm, where you plant in one of the saplings, it grows into a tree, and then you have the player having a hoe with silk touch and a helmet of aqua affinity, just holding down left click. So any leaves that grow on the tree will be harvested with the silk touch hoe. You also have azalea in your offhand, which is used for planting. So besides holding down left click, you also hold down right click, and the machine will automatically put the player in the right location. And by aiming like this and having right click and left click held down, you plant the sapling and you'll be able to remove any leaves, all while being AFK. You can do the F3 plus T trick to have these buttons automatically held down without you at the keyboard. All the items are then collected by the water streams, and then they are placed into a chest on either side. And you can see you get a lot of leaves. You also get the logs, sticks, and both types of azalea sapling. Now the leaves are pretty cool because they are extremely green, and the new ones also have flowers on them. So they make amazing vegetation for builds. Running this farm for 1 hour will produce 96 trees and will use 234 bone meal. This will produce 628 logs, 2,700 azalea leaves, 900 flowering azalea leaves, 100 azalea saplings, 57 flowering azalea saplings, and 135 sticks per hour. The farm itself doesn't contain that much redstone. There's just some little clocks and redstone that goes all the way up to the top. And you can use TNT dupers or you can use dispensers, depending on which one you prefer. Next is 2 new farms. We got Glow Ink from the Glow Squids, as well as Axolotl farm. And you can see the Glow Squid are spawning in here. The farm itself is quite simple, just a dark room full of axolotls from buckets. That way they don't count to the mob cap, or you can name tag them. And this one's set up for glow squid. They'll be able to spawn inside of here. This farm is built at a particular Y level. It has to be built below sea level. So here is sea level right there. And if we follow across, we can see that all the water is underneath of that. This can actually be built in any biome. Unlike the squid farm that looks almost exactly the same. That is the same thing except it's not dark. Now to run this farm, it's best to AFK really high up so that you don't load any other water, therefore you don't load any other squids or axolotls or glow squids or even dolphins, which are all the same mob cap. So here's the AFK spot, and if you sit right here, and if we turn up our entity distance to the max so we can see what's going on down there. I also gave the glow squids the glow effect. We can see them, but you can see that they quickly killed them. And using a telescope, we can zoom in to watch the axolotls at work. The farm itself runs very efficiently once you got it over the initial time it takes to start. Because in the beginning, all the axolotls will attack one squid, and they do have a cooldown now. So it's not as efficient as when I first showed it. And that's why it takes more axolotls. But eventually, it will consistently kill the glow squid, producing around 1,000 glow ink per hour just with this little setup here. It only takes about 10 minutes to build this up. And glow ink is pretty cool, where you can make these glow effects around the lettering of the signs. And you can also make glow item frames, which look really cool in dark areas as they don't emit light, but they are easy to see still when it's dark. Now you can use the same farm to farm up axolotls. If you just remove any axolotls in here, and then you AFK it, you'll get both glow squid and axolotls, and you can come down in here and scoop them up with a bucket to obtain them for another new item, which is bucket of axolotl. Now axolotls themselves just drop XPs when they die, and don't drop any items, but they are useful in making farms like this, as well as having them as a sort of pet. Next, we're going to take a look at another new item, which is Copper. I made an AFK Copper farm. This farm uses a zombie spawner to spawn on them, which then has the zombies be converted into drowns. And once they are drowns, they will be dropped down until they have low health. And then down here, the player can either kill them with a sword, where they have a chance of dropping a copper ingot, which has now replaced their gold ingots that they used to drop. But I actually designed this farm to be infinitely automatic, meaning that you can AFK this and it will produce unlimited amounts of copper ingots. This is done by having the player full of thorns armor and by having rotten flesh and offhand as a food source, and we can also get the looting effect while we're AFK by having a looting sword. Now if you go inside and just sit here AFK while holding right click, your player will automatically eat when he's hungry, which will prevent him from dying. The thorns will automatically kill them, and the looting will also apply to these guys. And you don't need to have any auto clickers. The XPs off of the guys that die will repair your armor, and when they die they also drop more rotten flesh, which will resupply you with food. And you can use the F3T trick to have the right click button automatically held down. Because it's using a mob spawner, it's kind of limited on how many it will produce. At most it'll produce 40 ingots per hour. If you're looking for faster drowned and copper farms, I've also made some really big ones. Now the copper ingot can be crafted down to make the new spyglass as well as the lightning rod, and it could be crafted into a copper block, which is used to get the majority of the new block types in 1.17. So it's very useful for builders. This farm itself is quite simple, just a little bit of redstone right here. Another new item which is used to make the spyglass is the Amethyst shard. Here we have a auto farm for it. These farms have to be built around a geode, so you can't move this farm. Meaning each farm is going to be uniquely designed. But the concept is pretty simple. You put a bunch of pistons around a budding amethyst, and then the amethyst clusters will grow off of them. Then when the pistons go off, they will break the clusters off, which will turn into shards. And you just try to put as many of these around your geode. They're all attached to a clock, and when they break everything off, it'll all end up here in the center where you can collect it. The shards can also be crafted down into a block of amethyst, which unlike the budding amethyst blocks, these blocks can be moved around and act just like other blocks. The rates of this farm will depend on how many amethyst buds you are collecting from, but for them to grow, it does depend on random ticks, which only occur in an 8-chunk radius around the player. Make sure to find a geode that's near your base. You might also be able to find several geodes beside each other to make a more efficient farm. But the farm will run automatically, and you can just come in and pick up the item. Now besides the actual shards, you can also collect them as the different size clusters, which I have a farm for. This farm is also really dependent on the geode, but you can use the techniques that I have in this farm to custom design your very own. This farm does rely on a player, and you need to have a silk touch pickaxe. You just hop in this minecart, and then you aim depending on what size cluster you want. As they come in 4 different sizes, small, medium, large, and the fully grown one, which is called the cluster. Getting the different size amethyst not only looks really cool, but also has a lot of unique different sizes, which is great for alignment. And then all you have to do is AFK and hold down the left mouse button, which you can do using F3+T trick. Then the minecart's just going to move you to the different geodes, which will be placed in front of your face. And then as soon as you break them, it's going to move you to the next location. The main thing about this is making sure that you aim at such a location where you're not breaking anything in the background. You can even mine up little ones and big ones depending on where you're aiming. For this farm, you will be collecting items in your inventory, so make sure you have room. And then once the entire cycle is made, the player is put back at the beginning to break it once again once they have grown in. The farm does get pretty complicated when you're trying to use as many spaces as possible. So if you're trying to make your very own farm, just start out with a couple spaces and try doing most of your designing in creative before applying it to your survival world. Once again, the rates of this farm will depend on how many clusters you have. Next, we're going to take a look at Powder Snow, a new item for 1.17, and an AFK farm, which lets you get unlimited amounts of it. Powder Snow has a lot of unique properties, like being able to walk through it slowly, and it able to freeze the player, which will do damage to most mobs. It's such a useful item, it's actually hard to get in large quantities, and that's why having this AFK Powder Snow farm is a must. To run this farm, you just go into survival, push forward in this minecart, and you need to aim so that you are looking at the feet of the cauldrons, which are coming into view, and you want to aim just so that you're aiming on these feet that are just barely in front of you. This will let you pull any powder snow from the cauldrons that are directly above you, as well as the ones that are one block in front of you. After you go through the first round, just make sure you don't empty your buckets completely. And then for every cycle afterwards, you'll be able to just hold down right click, do the F3+T trick to automatically harvest up powder snow. and the system will automatically feed you more buckets which you can use on the next rows. The way that the powder snow forms is that you have to build this in a cold biome where when it rains, it will actually produce snow. And the snow will fill these cauldrons up layer by layer. So it can be a quite slow farm to have, and that's why this is all tileable, so you can make this as big as you want. But once again, this depends on rain upticks, so you can only go as big as a 9 chunk radius around the player. And you'll have to make sure not to sleep away the nights, otherwise it won't rain, which is needed for this farm. For the farm to work, you do need to supply it with empty buckets, so it's best to have an iron farm. And I have this command here so you can automatically refill it for testing. All the buckets of powder snow are being put over here into this collection. The build itself is moderately complex, but it is tileable, meaning that every row is exactly the same, so once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. The rates of this farm will depend on how big you build it. The final new farm for 1.17 is one that automatically oxidizes and waxes copper. This farm is also by far the most complicated one we'll look at, as this farm lets you place in all your copper and get it automatically oxidized to just your liking. So it can turn into exposed copper, weathered copper, or oxidized copper, which then can be crafted down into cut variations as well as the stairs and slabs. And it does this all automatically while you're AFKing. Besides that, this farm can also automatically wax all the copper, meaning that once it turns to this variation, it won't be able to oxidize any further, which then can be crafted down into the cut, stairs, and slab variations. If you don't like them being oxidized, the farm will also automatically deoxidize them, depending on which levers you have flicked. And if you want to remove the wax, it also has a mode for doing that. It's a pretty crazy farm, and I managed to compact a lot of stuff all into one farm. And the farm even looks really epic when it is running. And this is how you can automatically convert your copper into all the other variations, which make up the majority of the new blocks. When using any of these farms, make sure that they are bomb-proofed in the appropriate locations, such as being lit up. And if the player is AFKing, make sure that they are safe, and if possible, have them completely encased in blocks so nothing can attack them, including phantoms. Make sure you guys do subscribe, because as I design these weird and unique contraptions, I come across a lot of strange glitches and tricks, which I will be doing videos about in the future. A lot of new items and mobs in this update, and I had a lot of fun spending the last 8 months designing all of these farms. I have to admit, some of them were extremely challenging, but in the end we were successful. If you want to see exactly how to build them all up, I provided this world download, and if you want to learn exactly how they work, check out the original video that I did on them, as well as my live streams designing them all. And I want to thank everybody who joins my streams, as it really keeps me motivated, which produces amazing achievements. Make sure you guys have your bell notifications turned on so you don't miss out on the second part. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!